So hello everyone and welcome back to our podcast. Today we have Mr. O.
Hello.
How are you feeling today, sir?
Wonderful, because it's Friday
Yeah, oh my god.
and it's sunny.
Finally. It's so cold too, actually.
And I just got in all my last grades. All my summatives are done. All my stuff is done.
So going with the teaching, you're talking about marking and everything, sounds really complicated. But what made you decide to teach in general?
It's a great question. So I'm sure you might know that a lot of teachers burn out within 5 years, right? Well, once you get past it, you're in. So what is it for the people that can stay in? Why do they do it? Because I don't think my story is unique. I'm a middle child, only boy, military family that moved. I think I went to 8 or 9 different schools just in primary and secondary. And things were different, the 70s, the 80s, just a lot of parental absence, or what today would be probably criminal neglect. Early on, I realized I was good at it, I guess. When I was a kid even, when I would move to different places, that was a way to make friends quickly. I could help you, study for that. Or the second thing is selfish. I learned very young that the best way to study is to teach someone else. For a lot of teachers, teaching just gives us the opportunity to learn new stuff. So I had students in my history class today doing presentations. I learned new things from them. It's an excuse to learn. But I want to say the first sort of teaching thing was that I had a younger sister who had a lot of learning differences, and everybody told her constantly that she was stupid. And then guidance counselors were nah, you don't want to take that math class. And she was feeling really bad about it. And I'm pretty good at math. So she was yeah, they said I'd never be able to take this class. And I was why don't you sign up for that class and I'll help you with it. And then I remember my parents were really upset. You're going to ruin her GPA. What are you doing? And at the end of the day, my younger sister got a C in calculus. But this is someone that they were telling you can't do calculus. You can't even do pre-calculus. You're nowhere. So that was a really fulfilling experience, let's say. And then I had a teacher who was really instrumental in shaping my life, right? I had a history teacher named Mr. Burns. Well, he really saved my life a bit. I moved out of home at the young age of 17. So I've been living on my own since 17. So my first place wasn't exactly great. It was pretty much like a squat, with a punk rock squat. And I was even thinking about dropping out of school. And this guy was my history teacher, my AP history and government teacher. And he just went over and above. In the summertime, he would check up on me. And then at some point between my junior and senior year, he called me and was I got you a job for the summer. And I didn't know anything. He was just 4 days from now you start and you're going to be a teacher's assistant, at this summer school. And he was I have faith in you. I know you can do it. And I kept in touch. I still call him Mr. Burns, and he's 81. Oh. So he's I'm Richard. I'm no, you're Mr. Burns. So kind of his example, it got me into teaching. And then I had a very Mark Twainish beginning to my career, because I play music and I liked playing music, and I learned that in America, if you are good at school, you can get paid to go to school. I was in school for 11 or 12 years. I got my law degree, I got my graduate degree, I got all this for free, just by being a nerd and getting good grades. I like learning, so as long as I learn and get good grades, then not only do I not have to pay for school, but they pay for my housing, they give me money for food, and they give me health insurance. So until I was 30, it's just okay, this gives me an excuse to be in my band, and then learn something on the side. So I had a lot of different careers, and the career before this career, I worked for about 5 or 6 years as a management consultant for KPMG, SAP, Shell, and I was making a lot of money, paid off all my loans, but I was flying 100 times a year. And I learned very quickly that I'm a homebody. I always thought I would like the traveling. I hate it. So after my wife was pregnant with our son, I was on a trip to England. It was a disaster for work. The flight was late. The train was closed. It was maybe 1 a.m. And I was so tired that I was crossing the street and I looked the wrong way and I got hit by a taxi. Not hard. I've been hit harder. But from the ground, I was just okay, I need to change. I need to change up jobs. I didn't know what that was going to be. My wife was very pregnant at that point, and the baby was born. And it was clear that my son was going to be autistic, as I am, by the way. And so I was I want to stay home with him then for the first couple of years. I'll do that. So my wife was at work, And I was staying at home, but I was like, I still want to try this like a career. So I started teaching music lessons out of my house because I play 13 musical instruments. And one of my students today is in conservatory, and I still keep in touch with her. She lived close enough that I could hear her practicing. So yeah, I started teaching music, and then just from that, parents would be like, could you help my kid with math? So then I started like tutoring math, and then I lived right by this American high school, and I was like, why don't I just see if they need like substitute teacher? And they turned me down for like a good long time, maybe like a year, before I went in to see him and was like, I don't understand why you keep turning me down.
Did you know why?
Well, they were like, frankly speaking, no one ever looks at these applications, so we're glad you came in, because substitutes were just trying to grab anybody, but we can. So I had an opportunity there, and then I went to the 4th graduate school to get the postgraduate teaching certificate and did my teaching hours there. And and I sort of forgot to mention that when I was consulting, I was essentially teaching, but I was teaching adults. And one thing I can definitely tell you on this podcast is teaching young people is vastly easier than teaching adults. Professional adults are the worst to teach because they already think they know everything. They never do the homework. They never come back from breaks on time. They always have an important phone call to take. So all the stuff that they yell at kids about at this, like at school, they're way worse in the professional world. So I actually find teaching young people less stressful and far easier than trying to teach professional adults. They already know everything. Oh, I already know this. And also when it comes to following instructions, I learned that this is an important thing about being a teacher, to give very simple, clear instructions that can't be confused and aren't too long. It's bad enough with students. With adults, you make one mistake in the instructions. If you're hosting like a large sort of event, chaos ensues. Just like with the worst kids you could think of. Something, I don't know what's going on. Where? And you're like, it's just a typo, guys. It's really bad.
Really? Because I would expect like, if you have a group of kids, they would follow the instructions exactly, right? Because they don't believe they know better. They just have the instructions to follow. Mm-hmm. But like, I would think that if you have adults, they would kind of think they know better and therefore not follow the instructions and therefore perhaps avoid the mistakes.
No, they just see one error or mistake and they can't contemplate that at an event with like 300 or 400 other people and that you're running multiple sessions and rooms and that all that's happened is, the printer was printing off 10 instruction sheets and the 10th one, it cut off like the last word. And instead of being like, oh, you know what, it looks like this got cut off, the person, like people that don't want to be there or that are in a bad mood, if that person reads it, it's like the sky is falling. This sentence isn't even complete. I don't know where to go. And so it could be really, really troubling. So my partner and I, we had different names for different kinds of people.
Oh, wow.
Like, I won't say them here, but we were like, warning, it's, I'm like, okay.
Your own kind of stereotypes.
Right. You know what's the funny thing about stereotypes? We call them archetypes in the professional world. See, it's a stereotype, it's bad, right? But when you're teaching professionals and you're like, you need to figure out who your typical customer is. Mm-hmm. And they're like a stereotype? You're like, no, like an archetype. So.
If you could make a change in the educational system, from this experience, what would that be hypothetically?
Cover
a vast area.
Yeah, I got a lot of things. Okay, so number one, I believe that it's really important that, you know Noam Chomsky?
No.
Chomsky? Okay, he's a linguist and a bit of a left-wing political guy. But he got famous in the 70s and 80s for inventing these theories about human beings having natural language acquisition devices in their brain. The reason other animals can't learn these languages like we do is our brain has this, he couldn't explain it, this nebulous hardwiring ready to learn language. That's since been critiqued and there's disputes, but I believe that all mammals, maybe even all animals, are hardwired to learn through playing. And so the worst thing we do to kids is say, all right, you're 5 now, no more playing. Now you go to school, and now you sit in a desk, and this is work, and this is homework, and this is school work. And it sets the wrong agenda from the beginning because this pressure, this is work, it's not fun. And they build this line in their minds. And so one of my goals and one of the things I would like to see done in education is to reinforce that, like, in the history of humanity, no one's had such a great opportunity as you guys have, as we have now. I mean, you get to spend the first 20 years of your life just like playing around, learning stuff. You don't have any actual worry or responsibility. So for me, learning isn't fun enough. And fun doesn't mean easy. It just means that we put pressure on students for the wrong things. So my students, a lot of them, they don't seem to care about necessarily what you're working on or the their work product or learning new things or exploring. They just want a grade. And this is already just like a terrible way to start dealing with the kid. Misses the point. And I see lots of kids. You know, I've had kids call me up before like an IG or an IB exam in the middle of the night, like crying because they're stressed out or something. And I'm just like astounded and then I have to tell them like, look, this is an IG exam. Let's be honest. It's effectively meaningless. I mean, it doesn't matter at all. And none of these things really matter at all in the grand scheme of things. And the fact that you can't sleep because of an irrelevant test on a subject that I know you know, because you've been in my class for 2 years, that just makes me sad. So I want people to be working hard, and I want them to be interested, and I want them to pursue the things they want to work on. And so another part of my playing philosophy is like, we all have permission to be bad at something. Not everyone is going to be good in every subject. That's just not the case. So I feel like we force students to take the full range of subjects for too long. I also feel like the STEM thing is hilarious because now it's STEAM, right? Science, tech, engineering, arts, and math. Yeah. Well, the only thing missing from that is humanities.
Yeah.
And so I'm a humanities guy. But actually, no, I'm an education guy generally. But so another thing I would change is, especially here, I had a bunch of TOK students last year, and I said, show of hands, who's taken history? Not a single student. I had an IB2 student stay after class to ask me what the Holocaust was.
Oh.
How do you have somebody in an IB program in their second year? And it's not a criticism of the school for me, and that's actually a criticism of the IB. So I know you're in the IB.
Yeah.
But for me, that's why I don't teach IB, right? As I like AP, I feel like the IB puts so many rules and regulations and restrictions and summer work and projects. And like, this is fun. This is cool. But like, when do you get a chance to just read the books you want to read in the summer? And that's part of, your growing and your learning. I dream oftentimes I would love to start my own school someday, very small, and it just very project based, but not project in that way that leaves a taste in your mouth, like, oh, project based. I did this once with, do you want a new basketball court? I remember doing this in Baltimore with kids. You want a new basketball court? Let's get you a new basketball court. That's our project for the entire semester. We're not going to just read the book. We're going to learn how local government actually works. I'll go out and I'll give you the resource and tell you the way to do it, and then we're going to write the letter and we're going to lobby so that you can learn like how government actually works in action, and then you're going to see a tangible result. You're just going to get A. If this works, you're going to have a new basketball court. I guess then in my ramble, for me, education should be playful and fun. It should not be distinguished from play as some kind of work. A lot of teachers say this, but they don't do it. You should not be afraid to fail, because we fail 99% of the time. And as soon as you stop failing, you failed or you're dead. So the victories are few and far between when you get it all right. But that doesn't mean, and we do it the wrong way, you don't celebrate the victories and then mourn the failures. Most things are failures. You learn from the failure, and you can even laugh at the failure. So to learn, you have to not be stressed. You have to just be in an environment where you get to be curious, do the things you want to do, be encouraged to fail and fail often and fail fast and find out why, and not be concerned with 7s or 5s or 6s or word count. I was subbing an IB class the other day, and it's so sad that you have to type your word count on the front, because the real answer of how many words should something be is however many words it takes. Some people might be really concise and incisive and be able to write a very short piece. Some might want to go longer, and I'm sure you've heard this, but when you get to grad school, you'll see that it's the opposite. Mm-hmm. Your advisor will be like, I don't want it any more than 40 pages. And you'll be like, oh, please, let me do 50. And that's just for the lucky people that made it to graduate school, that are actually finally doing. Basically, I think graduate school should be how we're already learning at like 13 or 14, where you get into study groups with people that to work on things that are interesting, and they would be multidiscipline. There's no reason to separate each class into like 40 minutes of math, 40 minutes of physics. You put it all together and be like, okay, for this part of the project, we've got to code something. We got to figure out how to code like a little program that's going to help us do that. So let's do a little coding. And, you're doing the coding, and you're like, okay, so the problem with the code here is to get this last bit, we're going to have to do some math. So now you're doing math. Now the thing's working. Okay, we can use this as a registry to gain votes for the thing we want. Now you're doing civics, political science, all right, now we got to draft this resolution for the city hall. So now you're practicing your writing, your essay skills. I think it's much more natural for people to learn that way. That's why my own son goes to a Montessori school.
I find that so interesting because I feel like in our project as well, we have started with it being like, yeah, it's going to be a podcast, right? It's a social thing. But if it's more of a holistic project, you don't realize in advance, but there are so many elements to it. And it really allows you to learn many things that you weren't expecting to learn in advance.
That's right.
Yeah, and also considering that we're taking so many teachers and students, we also want to cater to them and ask questions specific to them. So for example, we had Mr. McGuire, we asked him a lot of questions about history, a lot of questions about his acting experience. And with other teachers, we want to incorporate their own subject as well. And so together, when we plan those questions, we really kind of try to deep dive into the subject a little bit as well. And I feel like it is really interesting. And just like right now, hearing like your opinions, and as an IB student myself, I've heard about, this word actually very recently, because we're going into our EEs, which is like our extended essay. And
it's just finished one of those with Denzel.
Yeah. So it is like very crazy listening to this like broader view. So
another thing I've always found interesting is that a lot of people don't seem able to distinguish, especially teachers, between professionalism and formality. So they believe that being professional means you have to also be formal. And I'm a very informal person, but it doesn't mean I'm not professional. You'll hear a lot of teachers talk about differentiation and things that they've learned, and maybe it works, maybe for them, but I've never really gotten that model. For me, there's chalk and talk time, there's lecture time, but then when you're working with your students, it has to be bespoke. It has to be specific to each student. And you can't help a student if you don't know a student. So I sometimes run into trouble with this notion that there needs to be like a bright line. Like you shouldn't, there's your personal and there's your private. And whereas, because I kind of view teaching as like a member of a community, it's a holistic thing. It's not, I'm not just your teacher of economics. I'm also teaching you about like responsibility and different situations, just sort of different life lessons. It's more holistic than that. And even if it weren't, I can't really teach you effectively. I'm just a guy making you do exercises out of a book. If I don't know, like, I'm not kidding. I can tell you, like, in my class, which kids are left-handed, you got to know stuff about people. Otherwise, you find yourself being judgmental, and you don't help people. So the hardest, or actually the most interesting, but also the most challenging part of teaching isn't teaching. It's figuring out a way in with each student. And sometimes it's really tough when you have a student who has like no interests and you've been trying for months and then finally you crack it. They see you eating something or something and they're like, oh, is that a whatever? Like, I love those kind of cookies. I'm like, oh, do you bake? Oh, I love baking. And then you got it. So then, I had a student, all right, your favorite food is macaroni and cheese with like this bacon thing in it, and they don't make it at the dining hall. I know how to make that, and I'll make a deal with you. If I don't have to put you on ISAMs for 3 weeks, and if you get above, this on the assignment that you're turning in, I'll make it for you, and I'll bring it in. I'll serve it to you in class. So like these things work with people way more than, I already told you, it's due by next Wednesday, and if you don't do it, you get a 0. No one likes that. What are you guys, like soldiers and this is boot camp? Think about any other, when you're older and richer. If you have a tennis coach or whatever, they're not like, hurry up, get on the court. What are you doing? No time. They're going to be like, oh, how was your week? Oh, did you take care of that thing you were telling me about? Oh, you got your car. Even if it's small talk, it's not meaningless or vapid. If they're a good coach, it's because they're trying to figure out what mood is this person in before the practice today? Like what this, what that. So for me, the most interesting part and the most important part of teaching is getting to know the student. Because like I said, otherwise anybody can be a person that's like, do exercise 3.6 out of the book. Let's do the questions. You start. You don't need any training to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I think that's a really unique and interesting approach to teaching. Because I feel like it also helps as a student when the teacher is a bit less formal. Because you feel like you're learning more from them and they feel a bit more relatable and you feel far more connected to the teacher.
Yeah, and also for me, I'd say I can ask questions more. Yeah. Like I wouldn't be scared in class,
Because a lot of platitudes. Like you hear all the time, better to ask forgiveness than for permission.
Yeah.
But then you'll get chewed out when and you're like, I just thought it was a good idea. Or like, there's no stupid questions, but then you ask a teacher and they'll be like, I already answered this. Instead of going, wait a minute, you're a good student. If you don't get this, why don't you get this? Did I not explain this? Who else doesn't get this? All right, why aren't you getting it? And then you're like, what was wrong with my example before? What's wrong? I get it. Okay. And then, so you got to work together, and you can't work together if this weird thing about education with kids. It has to be an equal relationship, right? You can't be like, I'm the teacher, you're the student, you're a subordinate, you listen to my rules. I mean, you can, lots of people do that, and put things on ISAMs, but like, that's how teachers burn out. Is that why you became a teacher? To yell at kids and put people on ISAMs? Probably not. You probably wanted to share your love of learning with them. And no one wants to share anything with someone who's constantly yelling at them, right? And it's also always occurred to me, even when I was much younger than you, I always thought about this. You're human beings, right? I'm a human being. The only difference between us is age. Yeah. So this notion that there's some sort of a magic number, once they pass 18, then you have to respect them. Then you can't just scream at them, or that always struck me as weird. So I've found that I get a lot more out of students. I'm sure this is the kind of thing that, what's his face, McGuire would agree.
Yeah.
Fine, you get a lot more out of people if you're just meeting them in the middle and you're not trying to like one-up them or, I don't know, vent your personal frustrations by picking. I mean, there's weird stuff happens, right, in education, but I've always sort of stand apart from that and think like, wow, what are you doing? I mean, because for me, teaching is like my favorite thing. Like I'm about to go on medical leave. I'm going to be here next week or the week after. And I need that for my health. But I'm bummed by that because I actually get my energy from good days at school. I don't actually lose energy because people are like, oh, the students suck all the energy out of you. So actually, when you're doing it right, I come home and I feel great. And I'm like, I'm ready to go again. And without it in my life, then I'm just a guy that's dealing with bills and late, this, and the car's got to get fixed, and that's all mundane, and I'm not very good at that stuff because it's mundane. And I also really like working with young people because you're still creative. So one of the things I used to teach in HR to adults was a class called Creative Confidence. It sounds ridiculous. It's one of those soft skills. But I run up against it every day. I see just people that are in boxes, and they think outside the box, right? They say that one, and I'm always like, the fact that you're saying that means you're still in a box, right? And don't think outside the box. Don't think outside the room. There shouldn't be a building in your mind. There's no box, like anything is possible. So one of the things I find about teaching and creativity is that's like one of the most important skills, but we kill it in kids. Because whenever they do something that's really out there, we either laugh at it, tell them that it's wrong. We like to use words like inappropriate, which has no definition. What does that mean? Instead of going, wow, I never looked at it that way before. Or, oh my gosh, that is right. That is kind of crazy. It's not the way we're going to go with it, but really cool. So we tell people, don't be afraid, just try your best. But then we give them a test that says like D- frowny face. So one of my favorite facts, right, that I used to teach is that Paul McCartney and George Harrison of the Beatles,
okay, yeah,
especially Paul McCartney at this point, would be probably a record that will probably never be broken because of changes in the way music is distributed. But they're the best-selling musicians of all time. Paul McCartney has more than 500 million records sold attributed to him. Fact. They went to a public school and they took art and music. Fact. Their music teacher gave them a C each in music. Fact, their music teacher wrote on Paul McCartney's thing, this student shows no discernible talent in music.
Oh my God.
I always remember that. We're not supposed to be here to judge you. We're supposed to be here to help you. Right. And I don't know, things change, art changes. How could I possibly say that you don't know anything about music if I just don't understand pure music?
I feel like in certain teaching approaches, especially if you're doing, for example, a test, and the marking scheme specifies method, I find it really odd that you will literally be penalized if you get the right result, but you don't do it in the way the examiner intended for you to do. Even if, your method might be better or it might be worse, you will just not get the point because the examiner thought of it differently.
I also find that strange. And that's the thing, because really for a lot of times for methods, it's like, well, I don't even know if we can use the words better or worse. It's just multiple ways to solve a problem. So exactly, if your goal on like this test is to see if somebody can solve a problem, then you're doing them a disservice if you're like, yeah, you did it, but you didn't do it the way I was thinking about it. I want you to think like me. No, I don't want you to think like me. I just want you to solve the problem. Right? We don't need more people to think like me. We need people to think like themselves. So yeah, I also have an issue with that. One of the things I like about IG for certain subjects like econ, when the graders are grading, if there's something they never thought of, they'll amend the grading scheme.
Really?
Yeah, they'll be like, oh, that's a really good point that student made. None of us thought of that. Yeah, that's a point. The IG test does have a little bit of flexibility in understanding that maybe people are going to answer things differently. I also like the fact that the IG grading, you don't get minuses, you only get pluses. So they don't take points off. You're trying to earn points. You're trying to go up, not you started up. Because think about it psychologically. You started, day one, you were perfect, you had 100. But now you've answered 10 questions and you missed 2 of them. So now you're down to 98. Oh, if you keep going, you're going to be out of the 90s soon. Versus going the opposite direction of like, by the end of the term, we're hoping to get to 100. You just got 2 more. So you're on the way. You're already, it's a very psychologically different thing.
Much more encouraging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, I think what we're hitting at is, and I had this experience, I went to a lot of schools when I was young. I had a lot of terrible teachers. I spent all of 3rd grade sitting on the other side of the classroom because I was considered a distraction to like other students and stuff, simply because I would solve problems differently. Like the teacher would be like, remainder of 4, and I'd be like, 4/10. And the teacher would be like, we haven't learned fractions yet. How did you learn fractions? I would just learn it. And they'd be like, oh, that's bad. Like I still do 4s this way because I used to do sailboat 4s. But I had a teacher at another year that was like, I'm going to keep marking you wrong until you do it the right way, until you make the 4 this way. How are you helping me? How is this crazy? If you're the right kind of kids, right kind of students, should just be here to help you like think of stuff we didn't think of.
I really enjoy interactive sessions. Like that's one of the reasons why I got motivated to go into psychology, because my sister did psychology in the IB when she was doing it. She told me, yeah, we go through so many case studies, we go through so many new things, and I was also very nervous because what if there was a wrong way to psychology? Because I'm used to that in sciences, and I've seen bad results when I don't interpret it their way. But then now that I've gone to psychology, I realize that there's also another way of thinking. There's also a way of thinking where you can put your own interpretation on it. And I've seen that more now, which is really strange because I used to study in the Indian system. And there, not to say that it was worse or better or anything, but I was used to getting better marks from just doing what they wanted me to do.
Right.
But I actually really like doing what I want to do the way that would give me the outcome, the same outcome, which how you know.
But it also makes you far more effective.
Yeah,
because when people are educated to do what I want, I now have an army of slaves that will do what I want. Really, that leads to groupthink, that leads to lots and lots of problems. So I'm always impressed when students really think outside the box, and I will negotiate anything with a student. So I'll also sometimes give out special bonus points. Wow. Very occasionally, but it's like a full percentage on your final grade. Because I'm like, that's a moment of genius and that deserves recognition. So I was using questions for a formative directly from a book. And I have a student that comes up and he's like, aren't there 2 answers to this question? And then most of the time I make my own questions. So most of the time I'd be like, I have to look at that. But I was confident. This isn't a book from Cambridge. I'm like, no, I copied out of a book. It's fine. And he's like, but look, sir, if you did C... And I'm like, I'm not going to give you the answer. He's like, I'm just saying if you did, which C was the answer. He's like, if you did C, then at the same time, or concomitantly, you would also do D, wouldn't you? And I'm like, yep. A real point, bonus point for you, because that's really, I didn't notice that. Nobody else has noticed. I've given this test to 3 different classes. The editor of the book didn't notice that, and you're right. Things like that. So I love those moments. Or when a student really, the kind of thing that might get you in trouble with that teacher, when they're being cheeky and they've thought of some way to get around what I was trying to get them to do, but in a really creative way, I'm actually happier. I don't know if you know what I mean. It's like, oh, okay.
Because you thought about it.
You really thought about it. on the other hand, I was doing these history presentations today, and one of the things I was trying to explain to the students is like, this rubric, my mark scheme is really easy. I just want to see you guys learning. And so the thing that I'm most frustrated about when I'm hearing these presentations isn't the presentations, isn't that you stuttered or that you needed to read a little bit, is when I see you, that you read something or you learned something and you don't know what that word means or what it is, but you're telling me now about this thing as though you know what it is. You know, so someone was, for example, talking about Mughal India.
Okay.
And they were working on Mughal India for like a week. And I'm going to different groups, and I'm just trying to make sure they're on the right track. So I'm like, all right, so just like simple question. Dominant religion? And they're like,
oh, okay.
And I'm like, okay, that's like the first, when you go to Wikipedia, when you type that. And then like later with the group, they're telling me all about how, you know, there's one ruler after Babar was the first, right?
Yeah.
And then Akbar?
Akbar, yeah.
The ruler after Akbar is Shah something.
Is it Muhammad Shah?
Yeah, there we go. And I'm like, why is his name Muhammad Shah? That seems like very different from those other names, right?
Yeah.
What's Shah? And like no one has looked that up, and then I'm a little disappointed. Or like in India they had the like sitar, and you're like the sitar?
Yeah.
And then when they're thinking, when I ask them a question about material, my like question for the part of the marketing scheme is like, what'd you find out about the sitar? And they're like, I don't know what it is. And then I get disappointed. I'm like, why would you read something, not know what it is, and then just put it in your presentation, and you're just going to read it out to me? And I mean, like, what I say is, I get disappointed for you. Like, don't you want to know what that thing is? When I read a word that I don't know, I want to know what it is, right? Or, I don't know. The Blue Mosque in Istanbul, and the student was doing a thing on that. And I'm like, of course, before it was the famous Blue Mosque. What was it? And they're like, that was a mosque. And I'm like, that's the Hagia Sophia. I'm like, what's that? I'm like, it was built like 1,000 years before it was a mosque. It had the largest dome in the world. And then the people will be like, sometimes I have like about half the students in the class will be like, oh, and then they're going there and then they're asking me questions later that I don't even know. I don't know. I just knew the Hagia Sophia part. That's good. But then you have the ones that are like, okay. And that makes me sad because I'm like, you're not going to remember that. And it's not about you remembering. It's not about remembering Hagia Sophia. It's that in life, if you see something and you don't know what it is, you should want to know what it is. I want to know everything. I'm curious about everything.
Especially in history.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
And you go to that. I want you to go. I'm trying to get you to go down a rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. Another guy was talking about weapons in the Mughal army. It's like they had matchlocks. I'm like, what's a matchlock? I don't know. It's like, is it a kind of spear? I'm like, no, it's a kind of rifle where you have to light like a match, and then there's this thing, and you know. So it's not rockets. I mean, it's not right. It's not. I just want people in any subject I'm teaching, because I used to also teach math and I used to teach English. I just want you to like be curious. Like I have a student in business who was doing calculus. I don't care, because I liked what she was doing. She was doing this kind of differential equation to make these cool cones. And I'm like, that's way more interesting than what we're doing in the business class. And she's got an A in the business class, and she answers more questions than anybody else. So I'm just going to let her keep on doing her calculus. But you know what I mean? Because it seems like way more important to her at this moment, and she's good. So.
Yeah, especially I do remember last year when I was doing history, Mr. McGuire, he would go and talk about a lot of different things about history, not necessarily in like the syllabus, because of course there's a syllabus, but I really love when history goes out of the box. Like, I really love it when we do things out of the syllabus, because for some reason, I just find it more interesting. Like, the little details, you know? Like, you talking about the mosques, right? A lot of the mosques in India that were made in the Mughal Empire, actually, especially, they have little details, like the tiling. And each one of those things have, like, meanings that you don't necessarily know, because you don't learn. Because it's like, how are you going to learn 10,000 meanings? But it's just really interesting interpreting that. So,
like, I'm the guy in the church when I go, like, in Geneva or whatever, that's like, wait a minute, why are there 7 figures in this, like, and then I'm standing there for a while being like, okay, that's definitely, and you know what I mean? And then someone will come by in a guidebook and I'll be like, hey, can I see that guidebook for a second? Like, okay, it's the 7 deadly sins. Like, I knew it. But not everyone's going to be that way. But I guess what I'm getting at is that's my goal as a teacher. Isn't to teach you the 7 deadly sins. It's to try to get you one step closer to being a person that doesn't just go, okay, church, cool, let's go. that's like, okay, church is a church, but this is interesting. I've never seen like this kind of an arch before. This doesn't look like a Roman arch. What is this? That's how you catch people cheating, by the way.
Because they don't know the entirety of the content.
Well, no. The best teachers at catching students for cheating are the ones that are the most curious. Because I saw a kid outside in front of Mr. Bearblock's office on the sidewalk last week with his pants down, writing a whole bunch of formulas down his leg. Now, I knew this person was going to cheat, and I made sure to inform their math teacher, but I didn't do it right away because I really wanted to see how they were going to cheat. Because I'm like, it's written all, what, are you going to take your pants off? You know? So I was just like looking in the window for like 15 minutes because I had a free period, just trying to see because I'm just curious. I want to know. So the reason I oftentimes will catch people is that I'm just really curious. So like last year I was in the bathroom and like beforehand, I'm like, okay, it looks like we're good to go. And then I just thought, I'd never thought about it before, but I'm like, I wonder if anyone ever hides stuff like in the toilet paper dispenser.
Oh,
So I pull on the toilet paper and sure enough, ta-tunk, ta-tunk, ta-tunk. So I take the thing out. Person took all the toilet paper out, put their cell phone up on top, and then put the toilet paper back in. Now, most people, even your teachers, aren't going to catch that. But I'm a curious teacher, so I'm always just going to be like, so that's how you get caught. The more curious your teacher is. Students will take, you'll say open book test. They'll bring a book that's the same color, that's all one color on top, like red, and then they'll write on it with a red highlighter because you can only see it from an angle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I figured these things out. One time I had a student who kept going to the bathroom, and then it was a very small bathroom, a small school, just like an individual toilet. She would come in and write a whole bunch, and then she would sit there for a long time and then go out to the bathroom. And after class, I'm just looking in the bathroom, I'm looking at the ceiling, where could it be? I'm looking behind the toilet. And I thought I checked everything. And then I left. I'm like, no, you checked everything that you could think of. There must be something else. Go in there and do it again. I went in there, and the toilet has the thing on the back. I lifted up the cistern. Oh. She had all the answers covered in plastic.
Oh, my God.
You know? So I feel bad when I catch them, but I'm like, I got to give you, that is pretty, it took me a while on that.
Thinking behind those things.
Yeah.
At that point, like with so much effort, it's probably worth more to just study for the test.
Well, this is what I have a famous speech that I then go into, which is like, this is why you need to study, John, or whatever, because you're bad at crime. We've established that. You know, you gave it a shot, and I'm already better than you, and I'm not that good. So if I'm better than you, you're probably going to end up in jail if you keep doing this. So maybe we give up on the crime road and we find some kind of subject that you're interested in that you can get a 9 to 5 with, because the crime thing, not going to work.
So for something like that, I don't think many teachers would have such an approach to be so honest with the student and so direct. So what would you say differentiates you from other teachers that allows you to be so honest and direct with your students?
Do you want to know?
Yeah.
It's quite sensitive, in my opinion, right? Because there's life experiences, there's this or that. It's because I'm autistic.
Really?
Yep. There's the whole neurotypical. I have lots of autistic friends. There's a bunch of kids at this school that diagnosed or not. I know who's spectrum, who's not. And someday they're going to figure it out, right? Because currently they don't really know what it is, right? They come up with different theories, but one thing I noticed about a lot of autistic people is that they're very non-judgmental. And like that's why I do the D&D club, because the kids there, they're dressed up, and why not? You know, they're having a good time. They're not picking on each other, making fun of each other. The nicest kids, you know, like so polite, so friendly, so helpful, and just want to see each other be happy. So like I've got a friend who's autistic that loves to go to like Comic-Con and stuff. I don't, but she does, and so she gets really into it, and that makes me happy. And then I'll even like, oh, sure, I can help you with your costume, or so something about growing up that way. And I think growing up in a time when it wasn't well understood, and people would harshly judge me. This is there's something wrong with you, or this is not the way to do, or that's not appropriate, or this is wrong. It like really resonated with me through the years, and maybe it eventually even made me want to be a teacher even more, because I wanted to prove that like there isn't a wrong or a right. Things are not binary. And just because you're in the majority doesn't mean you're right. This is a big thing that people in the majority forget. Yeah. Maybe the 5% that you're calling weirdo or whatever word you got, maybe we're right. So it's the hypothetical more. So I think that's what makes me different with, because I grew up be harshly judged, but also when I would make friends, it's with other people that we were very non-judgmental. And by the way, my close friends that are autistic, they do the coolest things in the world. I mean, I got a friend who runs the best punk rock record store on the East Coast of the United States. He owns it. He had to spend like 3 years walking dogs and sleeping in a car at first to get it going, but it's well established. It's really, everyone that I know that's sort of that was in this sort of spectrum group with me, and most of us lived in that squat for similar reasons, I would say are the most successful people I know. And it doesn't mean they're the richest. One works for a labor union trying to unionize people. Another's a social worker. Another's a lawyer that does like consumer advocacy, but they're really passionate about their lives. And they all have really cool interests. Basically, whenever you think you're right and you think someone else might be wrong, you need to stop because things usually aren't right and wrong. And so if you found yourself thinking that, you've probably made an assumption somewhere or a judgment, and it could still result in a decent enough conclusion or answer, but you don't know what you could be missing. And I think a lot of people that don't have that experience here, for example, I mean, you'll have teachers, staff, whatever, adults here that will say things like, the reason we have a dress code is because you need to think about what you wear. What you wear might offend somebody else. Yeah. And I'm like, that's not why we have a dress code. Because think about it. You're free to express yourself however you want. If you want to walk around with a shirt that says Free Palestine, I say go for it. Because, I mean, we're supposed to teach people that you can't suppress thought. Speech is connected to thought. Obviously, we have rights and boundaries, but express yourself. Or they'll say, oh, you know, a lot of the sort of child safety rules we have to follow, they're always like, it's for your protection. Because if somebody were to see you eating with a student at the Happy Days, or what would they think? And it's like I think that's how a lot of people think. But it's like I grew up going like, well, I learned a long time ago that usually the stuff that other people think is wrong, pretty like in the box. So just don't worry about what other people think. Just do your thing. That's what we're supposed to be telling kids, I think. But I don't see that enough. I see too much in, not just this, I'm talking in education, I see too much focus on conformity. Yeah. On like, you know, oh, that's kind of another one of the problems in sort of an IB thing, is that it's like, there's a program and you do it this way, and then you write this EE, and then you do that thing. And I don't like that. I guess I don't like rules. But we could, if we had more time, I don't know if we do, but if we did in the future, we go into my whole political philosophy, because Matt Garton always says he's a champagne Marxist. I'm a social anarchist.
Oh, wow.
So, as in like anarcho-communism, or?
Social anarchism is kind of, we're the first people to get killed in the revolutions, like Bakunin and stuff. So like, I believe in private property and private ownership, and you have a right to succeed and be successful. But then I also have my own ethical code, which I wrote when I was like 12 or something. But the first part of it is, if you see somebody that needs help and you have the power to help that person, you must help that person. And when I tell this to other people, they're like, no, that's a terrible way to be. Maybe it is for them. Like, you could try. And I'm just like, no, I just came up with, and it's like a social anarchist thing. Is like, if I have, because this is true, like I have 3 guitar amps, right? So like, I'll just be like, Jared, I can only use 1 amp at a time, man. Just want to borrow my amp indefinitely? Or one time I just gave someone a musical instrument because they were better at it than me. And I'm like, well, I just play it like as a joke sometimes. It's not really my thing, but man, you should just keep it. So this is this mix of like private property and everything, but then also like, let's just give each other a helping hand. If you need help, I'm here to help you. But then I hope, there's always the disappointment of the social anarchist, because then you're like, now I need help. People are like, bye. So it's like, I traded away all my amps. Can somebody please loan me? Yeah, So it's kind of a midpoint between, it's not the whole like anarchy is that as in chaos and absence of everything. And it's more like, we don't need permanent institutions and permanent governance. If there's a problem, if we want to build a swimming pool in the city, we'll form a committee amongst ourselves called the Swimming Pool Committee. And we'll work with the people and we'll try to get the best thing, everything. But once the pool's made, we disband. Because there's no reason for us to be around anymore. Why should someone pay us to sit around in an office? And so that's social anarchism. Doesn't always work that well. Because I have found generally that people are pretty selfish. So.
And I don't know, for me, like in this age, we're growing up with our ethics and we're trying to, find a way around morals, trying to find a way in life. And such things, especially in history, you hear about the revolutions, the industrial revolutions. I always think, how did these people find the courage to kind of inspire these many people to actually stand up for something, even though they knew that it wasn't going to work out, even though they knew that, oh yeah, this government is oppressive, they're not going to let me do
Galileo? House arrest, buddy. But it moves. I saw it. Yeah, I know. That is kind of the thing. There's this inertia, and it works both ways, right? Inertia is great. Once something's moving, if it's a good thing, it's moving. But to get it moving, you got to go against all the naysayers and all that. And I really don't know what it is. Maybe I'll get there myself. But at some point, it seems like people just, they start with like that there's a right way and a wrong way. There's appropriate, there's inappropriate, everything should be rule-based. We need to have order. I kind of like a little chaos. You guys ever played Dungeons and Dragons?
I've heard about it a lot, but I never had a chance.
So there's like different alignments, like how your character is. And I can never play a character that isn't actually me. Like I don't like play like I'm going to be this evil. So in Dungeons and Dragons, my characters are always chaotic good. So there's lawful good, neutral good, and chaotic good. And so I guess the defining feature of chaotic good, which will get you in trouble, it will, but you'll sleep well at night, is that if you believe in something or you want to do something and it's good, doesn't matter whether it's legal or not legal or whether someone said you could do it or couldn't do it, because the imperative to do the thing that's good overpowers the low-level whatever that someone came up with.
I definitely agree with that. I feel like a lot of people, they argue that, well, you can't do this thing even though it's good because it's the law, right? And then they argue, well, it's the law because it's moral, and it's moral because it's the law, right? They have like the circular argument that kind of boxes them into just what the current lawfare is. And I feel like that's quite a big problem. Just
that's however. Come on, man. We've always had slavery. Stop with your whole abolition stuff, man. Slavery's always been around. It's moral. This is how, to move forward in history, you have to break, exactly. You have to break through the cycle of people going, no, but this is what's normal. And it takes somebody to be like, okay, I understand it's normal. I don't know if normal necessarily means right, or it could be normal, but doesn't mean I have to do it, or normal doesn't mean I like it.
Yeah, very much so. And I've actually started realizing this. Like this superficial cycle that society puts anywhere around the world, no matter where you are, no matter how free the country is, no matter how oppressed the country is, there's always a systematic cycle that the government, the people put. And whether that be for genders, different castes, for different religions, there's always a cycle. And I realize this now more in school, especially in the IB. You study something, you learn it, there's an exam, there's like a lab report, you study something, there's an exam. It's like, it's another circle. And then I realized, so many months passed, I just forgot it. But I did so many things to actually learn it. So I don't know, this cycle is definitely really, really strange.
Strange. Well, I forgot it. I just want to remind you of another thing that I find funny about education, and IB as well. You're never going to go to a lawyer and be like, I need help with this, man. But here's the thing. You can't look in any of your books. Like, think about the way tests work. Yeah. I need your answer. I'm not going to wait the weekend for you to do some research and write it. No, you said you were a lawyer. What's the answer? Yeah. No one's going to go to a NASA scientist and be like, don't double check the calculations. You mean you didn't memorize all those integral formulas back when you took calculus? Yeah. So I always find this funny as well. Or like, no, doctor, before the surgery, don't open your medical textbook and refresh you should already know that. So I do find it funny when people are like, but I forgot. I was like, well, the reality in life is you got to look all the time. You're learning where the thing is. Where you're like, oh, it's something to do with pressure. What was that guy's name? I can't remember, but I know where it is. Oh, yeah, that was the equation. You're not supposed to walk around remembering, all of the integration formulas or you're just supposed to be like, yes, there's a formula and I could explain it to you and I understand how it makes sense, but maybe I just look it up. Because not every 45-year-old guy who doesn't teach math can go negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Right? What's the middle, the discriminant? There's a part in there. And then people don't remember that. Yeah. So, right? I mean, I find it, I just always found, when you go to law school in America or business school, all tests are open book.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that.
Dude, I went to German law school, same thing, open book. Because it's not going to help you. I mean, if just being able to read a book made you a lawyer, then anybody could be a lawyer. So when you've got like case law and you've got to make analogies and you've got to reason things and you've got to try to persuade somebody and you have to try to remember you can't possibly remember all of it, but you can remember that it happened. So that's what I always think is weird about IB. You should be actually being taught to like use stuff, not use stuff. Yeah. Like you should be teaching a bad professional is like, no, I don't need to look at the formula. That's how in like 96 or 97, NASA and the European Space Agency, they built a probe together to go to Mars and it disappeared.
Oh,
it's because the Americans used the imperial system and
they didn't convert correctly.
Yeah, well, it's not that they didn't convert correctly. It's that no one was ever like, did we communicate with our counterpart and just be like, hey, how are you guys doing the work? They never bothered to like talk to one another and look at each other's stuff. They did what you guys have. The day of the presentation, you give me your thing, you give me your thing, you give me your thing, because they were just trying to tick things off a box rather than launch a probe into space. So, that's another weird little thing. I guess the theme here for me is that sometimes I find the world really funny, also sometimes really sad. But the thing I find funniest about education is that there's so many sort of habits or things that we do as teachers that I think are to the detriment of students in the long run and our society in the long run, because we don't teach people. We teach people that grades are important. They're not. We teach people that, I said memorize it. Nobody memorizes. That is not how you learn. We teach people do what I say and follow my rubric and you'll get the right answer. But when you're trying to discover something new, you're going to have to come up with your own. So I really feel like we've got these things wrong and we still haven't gotten it right yet.
But it really sounds like the parts that are more wrong, they seem to be more in teaching than law, right? You seem to have talked quite positively about law. Would you say that, like in general, your experience in law was more positive than teaching? Or would you say...
No. So in my experience in law, it's worse.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man. Especially when you're a criminal. I was a criminal defense and immigration attorney, so I'm working against the government.
Oh.
I mean, one time I got a guy released, and he wasn't on a criminal charge. He was on an administrative charge. But because of some weird statute that applied to immigrants passed in the Bush years, he spent 8 months in a medium security prison with criminals. And when the criminals would be brought out to see their lawyer, or the accused criminals, they'd be handcuffed. But my guy was handcuffed, shackled, and then manacled together, because that's the rule for immigrants. Even though it's not a crime, it's just an administrative offense. And this guy, when I finally got him out of there, the lawyer's like, oh yeah, I just noticed that this dude's not vaccinated. So we can't release him to be a danger to the public. He's going to have to stay. Unfortunately, the medical doctor only comes once a month. So even though you've just been declared a free man,
you're not. We're
going to have to keep you in here for 3 weeks.
Oh.
And then that guy called me on my vacation, my client, and was like, I'm like, what's up, dude? You're out, right? And he's like, no, they came to get me at 4:30 on Friday. And they said, you can either go now or you have to stay till Monday. And I was like, okay, well, I need my money because we're in the middle of nowhere. And they told me, oh, but the prison commissary is not open anymore. So they're giving him two choices, after taunting him for 3 weeks. You can either be free in the middle of nowhere with no money, or stay in prison and follow rules that you don't need to follow because you're not a criminal for 3 more days so that you can get your money back. I canceled my vacation because of that. Like I drove to the prison because you just get so angry. But the thing I loved about law is that, at least in America, if you can't win on law, you can win on equity. And in American court, you can say, look, Your Honor, you're right. Legally, this guy tricked my client out of $100,000, and he didn't do it in an illegal way. He's a dance instructor. She's like an 80-year-old woman. He flattered her and told her that she was the best dancer in the world, and he got her to sign up for like 20,000 hours of classes. I mean, she's going to be dead in a year, but he got her to sign up for 10 years of classes. His lawyers established that there's nothing legally wrong here. And I think that this is only common law. So don't have it in Europe. Your Honor, I'm not appealing to you under law. I'm appealing to you under equity, about just doing what's right. This could be your grandmother or my grandmother or any of the jury's grandmothers. So we're not talking about somebody who broke a law. We're talking about somebody who played with the feelings of this human being and took this stuff from her under false pretense. It doesn't matter whether the law says that that's wrong or not. We know it's wrong. And so that's what I always liked about arguing in a court in America.
I think that's a really nice thing about common law systems, that you have this other route to seek justice.
Exactly. Can't win on the law, Your Honor. You're right. The law is what the law is. But should it be that way? I don't think you agree with me.
Okay, yeah, I think this would be a nice note on which to end the podcast.
So, thank you everybody for tuning in for this podcast, and we'll see you in the next one.
There
Thank
you go.
Bye.
Bye.